Greetings, everyone. Well, 3 years after the Year of the Bat, we got a sequel, Batman Returns, with largely the same creative team. We got Tim Burton back, we got Michael Keaton back, we got Michael Gough back as who I think is one of the all-time great Alfreds ever. And Danny Elfman back doing the music. Just a fantastic score in this one. Holy moly. Then we also got Danny DeVito as the Penguin, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, and boy, what a treat. Now, the hype wasn't as massive for this one as the previous one, because of course it wasn't the 50th anniversary. It was the 53rd anniversary, I guess, not quite as big a sense of occasion. But the hype for me was definitely real, because as I think I made abundantly clear in the last couple videos, I was obsessed with the 1989 Batman movie, so when I found out they were doing a sequel, and it was going to be largely the same people doing this one as well, and it was just going to be a straight-on continuation with the same kind of look and feel, possibly even a little darker, I couldn't wait. I was just ecstatic. And yes, I saw it 3 times in the theater as well, much as I did the first one, because gotta support those favorites, man. Alrighty, so I'm of course talking about Batman Returns. And that's what we're going to talk about today on the Multimedia Chronicles for Batman's 80th anniversary. Welcome back. Well, my Batman movie obsession continued with this one. It wasn't quite as extreme as the last one. I did record a few things off TV, some movie reviews and news articles and such, but there just wasn't as much about this one as there was the previous one. I guess because, you know, with it being the 50th anniversary for the first one, there was just generally a lot more Batman stuff being covered by the media, and then the movie being a tie-in with that. Just kind of compounded it and meant there was even more. But there was still a fair amount of coverage for Batman Returns. Because, I mean, Batman 1989 was massive when it came out. It was just, you know, I don't know if it broke any box office records, but it came pretty darn close. I mean, it was definitely the biggest movie of the summer. And the summer of 89 was a pretty big summer for movies. I mean, you had Batman. You also had Star Trek V, Ghostbusters 2, and Indiana Jones 3, all in the same summer. I mean, that was a great summer for genre fans. So in addition to taping whatever I could find on TV about it, I also did pick up a few items of note. We got, well, of course, the novelization, once again by Craig Shaw Gardner, which I realized I've actually never read the novelization. I've owned this since it came out. This is the, yeah, I don't know how well you can read that, but it is the first printing, and I do have the first printing of the 1989 movie as well. But I never actually got around to reading it. I was really curious because, of course, the first book has a bunch of scenes in it that aren't in the final film. So I was always kind of curious to know if there was anything like that in the second one. Apparently there isn't. It's a pretty straightforward adaptation. I think that might be why I didn't bother reading it, because I found it was a straightforward adaptation. And then, of course, we got the comic book adaptation as well, with the movie poster on the back. This is, once again, a really, really nice adaptation. Beautiful artwork and renditions of the characters there. And you're going to see, I should mention, those of you who watch Multimedia Chronicles Retro, right now the current batch of episodes is covering 1992, which of course is when this came out. So you're going to see me mentioning Batman Returns a fair amount over the course of those videos. So yeah, keep a sharp ear out in all the retro episodes coming up for any Batman mentions. You'll see actually when I first got this, which is just a comic shop news thing about the movie. I think this was actually the wraparound cover. There was like a square-bound version of the comic adaptation. I just got the regular one because I think I couldn't find the other one. So, but I'm pretty sure this is the wraparound cover from the square-bound version. And then I got an issue of Fangoria featuring the Penguin. Very cool. And we got an issue of Comic Scene, all about the movie. And then, of course, we got the official souvenir magazine for the movie. And apparently, Tiger Electronics also had a Batman Returns game. So there you go. Good stuff. And there were a few other magazines and such, which once again you'll see mention of in the retro videos, which I'm pretty sure I still have kicking around somewhere, but I think they're buried in a box in the closet somewhere, and I just don't feel like digging through all those boxes. So, on to the movie itself. Right from the opening scene, we know we are in for a very dark ride. This one, I would say, is much more of a proper Tim Burton movie. Like, it really has that kind of dark fairy tale kind of feel to it. The visual design is a little bit more stylized even than the first one, but still kind of carries on the same kind of visual philosophy like for Gotham City and whatnot. A lot of post-industrial stuff, retrofitted buildings, giant statues, and things like that. It's also a Christmas movie. It actually takes place during Christmas, and needless to say, this has been in my Christmas movie rotation for quite some time. So we, of course, have the Penguin, who we see in the opening scenes when he's born, and his parents are horrified. He's not only mutated, but also quite animalistic and vicious. We see, and he pulls the... He's kept in a little cage, and we see his little flippered hand pull a cat into the cage and presumably eat the cat or something. I don't know. See, all we know is he did something horrible to it. The cat did not sound too happy. And then, of course, his parents ultimately decide to discard him by just kind of tossing him in the Gotham City Zoo, where he's ultimately raised by penguins and essentially lives in the sewer. So then we fast forward 33 years to the present, where much like, it kind of echoes the first movie a little bit, how at the beginning of the first movie, there was all these urban legends and rumors about Batman. Well, in this case, there's all these rumors and urban legends about a penguin man living in the sewers. So I like those little connections and callbacks like that. It kind of links the two. Then, of course, we also meet Max Schreck, named obviously after the actor who played Nosferatu in the old F.W. Murnau film. But Max Schreck, who's, big businessman in town, runs a department store and is looking to get funding to make a big power plant, and he's played by the wonderful Christopher Walken. His assistant is Miss Selina Kyle, played by the always delectable Michelle Pfeiffer. So I don't need to go into tremendous detail about the plot. I mean, I'm sure most of you have seen the movie probably several times, as have I. Much like the first one, I've lost count of how many times I've seen this over the years. But a few sort of notable things about it. I really like Danny DeVito's portrayal of the Penguin in this. I like the fact that first off, the design is very disturbing and gothic and deformed and animalistic. But I like the fact that he's kind of an interesting juxtaposition of a character where you have... He's very literate and very educated and very well-spoken, but at the same time, he has this almost unbridled, animalistic, feral side to him. And I really like how Danny DeVito kind of switches back and forth between those depending on what the scene calls for. He tries to be very prim and proper and gentlemanly in certain situations, but there are moments when the sort of more feral side of him comes out. Because, of course, he's been raised by animals, so it makes perfect sense. But I like those different layers to his character and his performance. One of the big standout scenes for me is the origin scene of Catwoman, where it's a very lengthy sequence. If you actually pay attention, it starts with Selina Kyle messing up and forgetting the speech and stuff, so Max Schreck has to kind of wing it. But it starts with her kind of at the office, frazzled, messing things up, and then she goes home, and then she has to go back, and then she discovers things and gets thrown out the window, and gets revived by the cats, and then she goes home, and it's just this big, long sequence of events that basically tells us her whole freaking life story, all the way up to the moment she becomes Catwoman. And that whole sequence of events just plays out so beautifully. And I really have to mention the music in that. Actually, the music in the whole movie. Like, in just the 3 years since Batman Returns, it's really clear just how much Danny Elfman had really found his musical voice in terms of movie scores, and how much he had matured as a composer for movie scores. I mean, you compare Batman to Batman Returns, and there is a clear evolution of his musical skill between the two. In Batman Returns, it just blows me away every time I watch it and I listen to the music as I'm seeing the images and how the music is married so perfectly to the imagery in the film. But in particular, the thing I really like about his style is it's kind of an old-fashioned movie score style, which I love, which is where different characters have their own themes. You know, there's a very distinct Catwoman theme. There's a very distinct Penguin theme. There's a very distinct Batman theme, of course. And there's other little themes. Also, even for the Red Triangle Circus Gang, they have their own motifs as well. But where in the original score for Batman, there were moments where they kind of cheated it by just kind of slotting in a chunk of music to you know, shoehorn it in to fit a moment in a scene. In this one, it's seamless. It is absolutely seamless, where the music just kind of flows. And there's some scenes where different characters are coming in and out of the scene, and you're hearing their themes almost follow them in and out of the scene. Like, it just flows so beautifully throughout the whole thing. But at no time does it seem forced or mistimed or cheated. It's just a very natural flow that is married perfectly to the visuals. One of the things I recorded a lot when I was sort of gathering stuff about the movie, you know, similar to what I did with the 89 one, was movie reviews. And I was really quite stunned by how many critics just kind of crapped all over the movie, saying, oh, it was so dark. I remember one reviewer, I mean, talk about being objective. One reviewer said, and what is with that sick weirdo Tim Burton making it so dark? Sick weirdo? Like, really? Is that objective film criticism there? You call the director a sick weirdo? What the hell? So, anyway, I was just floored by how negative the critical reaction was, because I thought it was fantastic. Essentially, we had Batman, the Dark Knight Batman that we knew from the first movie and from the comics, in this almost gothic fairy tale set in, well, I want to say modern times, but again, we have this sort of timeless Gotham where it's a mix of time periods, you know, the old cars and the old clothes, but computers and TV and stuff like that. So it's this interesting mix. But I thought it was fantastic, and actually it held its place as my favorite of the two for a very long time. I didn't actually get it on VHS. I got it on Laserdisc for Christmas that year, and I just watched it over and over again and just loved it more and more every time I watched it. I really think, as far as Tim Burton movies go, it's a freaking masterpiece, honestly. I've watched it twice this month alone, once with the viewers on Twitch, and then again with Rose, and she agreed. Actually, she was completely blown away by it and loved the fact that it was even darker than the first one, because she likes dark stuff. She's very much my daughter. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, people are stupid. I think it has aged well, and I think it's appreciated a lot more now than it was then. In particular, because of the films we got after. I think people sort of came to the realization, like, wow, we didn't realize how good we had it with Tim Burton. Yeah, but we'll talk about the other movies another time. So, yeah, long and the short of it is, I kind of flip-flop a little bit between Batman and Batman Returns as far as which one is my personal favorite. Objectively, I think Batman Returns is the better film in terms of story structure and characterization and so forth. Oh, just a quick aside here, Vincent Schiavelli is in this. One of my all-time favorite character actors. If you don't recognize the name, you totally recognize the face. He was like in everything in the 80s and not, well, actually 70s, 80s, 90s. He had quite a lengthy career. But he's that like tall guy with the beard. He's one of the circus gang in this. He's the one driving the train when they're going to pick up the firstborn. Yeah. Anyway, and he's the guy with like the big box with the like the monkey box with the minigun in it, where the cranks and the minigun goes. Yeah. Anyway, that guy. That's Vincent Schiavelli. Great character actor. sadly no longer with us, but he had quite an impressive career. If you look him up on IMDb, you'll probably recognize a ton of movies that you've seen him in. A couple of minor logical points. There's, of course, the one big question is how the heck did the Circus Gang and the Penguin get the blueprints to the Batmobile to plant the remote control device in it in the first place? But we'll just kind of let that go, because then it gives us that really fun scene where the Penguin is sitting in this little mini Batmobile, like, it's like one of those rides that you see at the mall. You pop in a quarter and it like jiggles your kid around for 5 minutes, and then, you know, they're all nauseous and whatever, they were out of your hair for a few minutes. But but it's that, but with Danny DeVito stuffed into it, driving the Batmobile and you know, giving Batman a hard time. It's a fun scene, and even though it does kind of stretch credibility as to how we got there, I can forgive it just because the resulting scene is so much fun. And then, of course, that provides the impetus for Batman to record what he's saying and then play it back at the speech and discredit him, so he's able to finally undo all of his plans. But yeah, it's a fun scene. And pretty much everything with Catwoman, I think it's great. I love the relationship that develops between her and Bruce. Because, of course, Catwoman and Batman have had an on-again, off-again relationship forever in the comics. And you see references to it all the time. So it's nice to see that kind of touched on in the movie here. There's so many great character moments with them, not just as Batman and Catwoman, but also as Bruce and Selina, when they're kind of both trying to deal with their own respective duality. I like the fact that they got a little more deeply into the psychological aspects of the characters and sort of what their personal struggles were, how Selina was trying to determine who she was and what she was. She didn't really know. All she knew was she didn't like who she was, and she wanted to change, and this sort of Catwoman persona that she had developed out of her trauma seemed like a good direction in some ways, maybe not in other ways, but I just love the conflict there and the character conflict. And I love the dance scene, the dance with that beautiful song by Susie and the Banshees. Love Susie and the Banshees, by the way. The Face-to-Face song. There's a music video for it on the Blu-rays and the DVDs. But that wonderful scene where they echo back the line about the mistletoe, and that's the moment when they both realize who the other is. It's like they both kind of accidentally blow their secret identities for each other at the same moment, and it's both funny and touching and beautiful. And oh my God, what are they going to do now? There's so many things going on in that scene. It's great. And that's, you know, it's all of these reasons and more that I feel that Batman Returns is the superior film in a lot of ways. Just that there's a lot more going on with the characters, and it really kind of dives more deeply into what makes them all tick. And I just devour stuff like that. I love deep, multi-layered character stuff. Just give me that on a silver platter, and I will be well fed artistically for a very long time. So, after all of the stink about Michael Keaton being cast as Batman back in 1989, and the fact that once people saw the movie, they were quite okay with it, and then now, with both Batman and Batman Returns kind of being recognized in a more favorable light, Batman Returns especially, because I think it got very unfairly maligned when it originally came out. It's good to see it finally getting the respect that I've always felt it deserved, and being seen as the, you know, terrific film that it is. So yeah, I mean, Batman and Batman Returns are definitely the two of the anthology that I've returned to more than any of the others, and will continue to do so for many years to come. I mean, for me, there's so much rewatchability in these films, and not just for their historical significance in terms of Batman's cinema history, but just because I really enjoy so many aspects of the films. You know, the look of them, the characters, the actors, the music, just everything. I just love both of these movies so much, and always have and always will. Well, that is it from me to you for now. So until next time, Thanks very much for watching. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors. Be sure to swing by Twitch if you feel so inclined. I stream there just about every day. You can see me making my videos and playing games and all kinds of other fun stuff. Sometimes we just sit and talk about geeky things for like literally hours on end. It's fun. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Until then, sayonara.